The Nile. We all know it, right? The river of Egypt, pharaohs, and pyramids. But what if I told you the story you learned in school is just the final chapter of a much older book? A book that starts not with pyramids, but with the very dawn of humanity. Forget what you think you know. Today, we're unearthing the real story of the Nile, the story textbooks tried to bury. This isn't just about Egypt. It's about Africa, the cradle of everything. Let's travel back in time, way back, not thousands, but hundreds of thousands of years. In the Nile Valley, archaeologists have found stone tools dating back 700,000 years. That's not a typo, 700,000 years. This makes the Nile Valley one of humanity's longest, continuously inhabited addresses on the planet. By 100,000 BC, we find evidence of sophisticated human behavior burials with ochre, a red pigment used in rituals, suggesting early spiritual beliefs. These weren't primitive cavemen, these were our ancestors living, thinking, and dreaming along the banks of this great river. While much of the world, especially Europe, was locked in the grip of the Ice Age, the Nile Valley was a paradise, a sanctuary. It didn't experience the brutal, freezing conditions that made life impossible elsewhere. Instead, the Nile offered something magical, the annual inundation every year. Like clockwork, the river would flood, depositing a rich, black layer of silt across the land. This wasn't a destructive flood, it was the world's most effective natural fertilizer. This black earth, or kemet, as the ancient inhabitants called it, was the foundation for everything that followed. This incredible fertility meant abundance. The river was teeming with fish, the wetlands were full of birds, the fertile soil allowed for the cultivation of grains like wheat and barley. By 10,000 BC, long before Sumeria or any other civilization you've heard of, people in the Nile Valley were domesticating cattle, harvesting grain, and building permanent villages. They were creating a stable society built on the reliable rhythm of the river. This abundance led to a population boom. While other human groups were struggling to survive, the people of the Nile were thriving, innovating, and growing. They had the time and resources to develop complex social structures, art, and technology. This is the crucial part that's often skipped. The magnificent civilization of Kemet, what we now call ancient Egypt, didn't just appear out of nowhere in 3100 BC. It wasn't built by aliens or people from a lost continent. It was the culmination of over 10,000 years of continuous development and refinement right there, in Africa, by African people. The skills needed to build the pyramids, the mathematics, the engineering, the social organization were honed over millennia of living and working with the Nile. They learned to predict its floods, manage its waters, and harness its power. Think about the sheer genius involved. The Nile wasn't just a source of water and food. It was a cosmic clock, a sacred artery connecting the physical and spiritual worlds. The ancient priests, who were also brilliant astronomers, studied the stars, particularly Sirius, to predict the exact timing of the annual flood. This wasn't just practical. It was a deeply spiritual act. The flood was personified as the god Happy, who brought life and abundance. The entire concept of Mat, the central principle of cosmic balance, harmony, and justice, was intrinsically linked to the predictable, life-giving cycle of the river's inundation. When the river flooded as expected, Mat was upheld. This deep connection is what powered their society. When a devastating 7-year famine struck around 2180 BC, it was the pharaoh Menhotep II who restored order. How? By reorganizing the state to better manage and redistribute grain from the Nile as bounty across the entire empire, ensuring the survival of his people. This demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of logistics and social responsibility that was born directly from the challenges and opportunities presented by the river. It was a system built by and for the people of the Nile. So, where did the story get twisted? Enter the Greek historians, like Herodotus. He famously called Egypt the gift of the Nile. And while that's a beautiful phrase, it's also subtly misleading. It makes the river the active agent and the people passive recipients. It omits the millennia of African ingenuity, the brilliant engineers, farmers, and astronomers who actively tamed the river and made its gifts possible. They weren't just given a gift. They forged a civilization through their deep understanding and mastery of their environment. The real distortion, however, came much later, in the 19th and early 20th centuries. During the height of colonialism, European scholars found it difficult to accept that such a monumental civilization could be purely African, so they created a narrative to separate Egypt from the rest of the continent. They argued that ancient Egypt was not really African. but rather a Mediterranean or Near Eastern civilization that just happened to be in Africa. The Nile was recontextualized as a footnote in a Mediterranean story, effectively divorcing Africa's greatest ancient civilization from its African roots. This narrative erased the true origins of Egyptian greatness. It ignored the 700,000 years of human history in the valley. It downplayed the 10,000 years of agricultural and social development that preceded the pharaohs. It was a convenient fiction that served a colonial agenda, but the truth is undeniable. The Nile didn't just make Egypt. African people, through their sustained genius and hard work over countless generations, made the Nile work for them. They created one of the most enduring and influential civilizations in human history, right in the heart of Africa. To pretend otherwise is like being told the origins of your own family are a lie. The legacy of the Nile is a testament to African innovation, resilience, and brilliance. It's a story that belongs to the entire world, but it starts and ends in Africa. Understanding this is not just about correcting the historical record. It's about giving credit where credit is due and recognizing the deep, ancient roots of human civilization on the African continent. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. In our next video, we are going to explore another buried piece of history, the story of the world's first universities, and you might be surprised to learn where they were located. See you then.